Vasistha continued, O Ram, the tree in a seed grows out of it after destroying the seed. But Brahman creates the world without destroying itself. The tree, world, appears even when the seed, Brahman, is as it is. Hence it is impossible to compare the incomparable Brahman with anything whatsoever. Whereas the tree, etc., are definable material substances, Brahman is nameless and formless being. It is Brahman alone that becomes what appears to be of a different nature. Yet, from another point of view, it does not so become, for it is eternal and changeless. One cannot therefore posit anything concerning Brahman. It is not possible to say that it has not become all this, nor is it possible to say that it has become all this. When the self is seen as an object, that's Brahman, the Absolute. And now we're going to be looking at notions of the self and the world which arise within Brahman. When the self is seen as an object, the seer is not seen, realized. As long as the objective universe is perceived, one does not realize the self. When you see the mirage as water, you do not perceive the rising hot air. But when you perceive the hot air, you do not see the water in the mirage. When one is truth, the other is not. And this theme is expanded on in this chapter. But let's just have a look at this again. When the self is seen as an object, the seer is not seen. As long as the objective universe is perceived, one does not realize the self. I suppose when the self is seen as an object, this is when the self is apparently perceiving an object. And let's just sticking with the sense of sight here. When you're looking at something, is there any awareness of who is looking? The awareness is of the object. So the seer is not seen or realized. And as long as we're caught up with notions of the objective universe, we are not realizing, we're not in touch with our true nature, we're not realizing the self. The eyes which perceive all the objects of the world do not see themselves. As long as one entertains the notion of objectivity, the self is not realized. Brahman is as subtle and pure as space. It cannot be realized by any effort whatsoever. As long as one sees what is seen with the inner feeling that they are objects of perception, himself being their separate seer or subject, the realization of Brahman is far indeed. So the first paragraph was about Brahman, and now we're talking about realization of Brahman. And when we're caught up with the world as a real thing, we're far away from the realization of Brahman. Just as when eyes which perceive all the objects of the world, they do not see themselves. So when the eyes are caught up with looking at things, the notion of a seer is completely in the background. We're just caught up with what we're looking at. I suppose there's an analogy here with watching a film, watching a movie. When you're watching a movie, you forget about yourself. You get caught up in the drama, and any notion that you're viewing something, if it's a good movie, as we say, the notion that you're actually viewing this disappears. You're just totally caught up with the drama on the screen. It is only when the division between the seer and the seen is given up, only when the two are seen, in quote marks here, apostrophes, as of one substance, that the truth is realised. This talk of seen as of one substance isn't very helpful. All there is the seeing. It's the seeing. When the division between the seer and the seen is given up, only when the two are seen as of one substance, that the truth is realised. There is only seeing. That's all we can say is going on. Seeing. That is the one substance, seeing. There is no object which is totally of a different nature from the subject, nor can the subject self be seen as if it were an object. In fact, the subject self alone appears to the sight as the seen object. There is no other object of perception here. In other words, when you look at something, there's only the thing that you're looking at. The looker, the seer, doesn't come into the picture. So you could say then that the subject becomes the object. If again the subject or the self alone is all this, then surely it is not even the subject or the seer. There is no division in such a vision. No division in such a vision. And the very word division seems to sort of imply a split, doesn't it? A split in vision. Division. But vision is what I would call the seeing. There's only vision, there's only seeing, not somebody seeing something. Just as sugar becomes diverse sweetmeats without ever losing its natural sweetness, this infinite consciousness or Brahman visualizes itself as all this infinite diversity without ever divesting itself of its essential nature. There is no limit whatsoever to the manifestation of this infinite consciousness. It can manifest itself in seeing, in hearing, in all the senses, and that's all there is. There's experiencing. We could sum it up as experiencing. Brahman is experiencing. There's nobody experiencing anything. There is simply experiencing going on. The field or stream of experiencing. That's all there is. This is the manifestation of infinite consciousness.